being among just the trees and out in nature all day, every day, led me to kind of really explore, more stuff and more relating to the earth as a being, as an entity, as a deity. It helps me slow down. It helps me listen. I can communicate with the plants. I mean, they don't talk in words, right? It's more like just a feeling.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chats. Today we have the lovely Mary Becquet, as she is originally from Texas and is a performer in the Los Angeles area. But today we're going to get down to how she grew up in a very creative household and found her pathway to relaxation and spirituality by nature. So how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never eaten one?
Oh my gosh. I would say it's creamy and delicious. I would say you have to peel it carefully. Don't eat the outside part. You only eat the inside part. And it tastes like ice cream, but that's not cold.
Lot of analogies to ice cream with the banana.
I love ice cream.
Interesting. Did you have a lot of ice cream as a little one?
Yes, I did. We would make ice cream, as a family in the ice cream season.
Now, was it just regularly or for special occasions?
It was usually for like the 4th of July or special picnics during the summer a lot. And, I don't know if you're familiar with the kind of old-fashioned ice cream makers. It's a little barrel about the size of a trash can, say, and then there'd be a 1-gallon thing that fits in it. And you'd put ice all around the outside of that, inside the barrel. And then it would just have a crank. And in our family, one of the children would have to sit on it on a folded towel. And then my dad would just crank. He would crank it.
And
you have to crank
it
for like 30 minutes, a while, 30 minutes. Yeah.
That's in like a repetitive stress injury right there. Like,
right. Exactly. That's why we didn't do it all the time.
Right. Now, when you have those holidays, do you crave that kind of ice cream?
It's more nostalgic. I think I have to have kind of a dietary discipline now where I can't indulge in this type thing. But I remember it. So, I would definitely eat homemade ice cream if I had the option, but I rarely get the option for that anymore.
So when do you recall having your first, existential life crisis as a child?
I think I remember I was about under 10 years old, and I asked my mom if it would go back to the olden days when I die, because I felt like I remember the olden days. Like I did have some memories of people in long dresses and, and I wondered, maybe it kind of resets like that. I tried to figure it out as a kid. And my mom was like,
yeah. How old were you then?
Under 10 years old, I remember. Yeah.
Whoa. So were these like saloon lady dresses that time period?
That was my impression. It was the Old West. Yeah. Crinolines and those are the flouncy skirts and hats.
When did you have your first memory
of that?
No, just memory period.
Oh gosh. That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure. I think it was when I was about 6. When I was about 6 years old, we lived in Washington State, and I had problems learning to close a car door on my own. I repeatedly would close it on my fingers.
Oh, no.
Like
it's like a space thing. Like yeah. What is it? Oh, no.
And so then I thought I would ask my mom, it seems like I've done that before. And I remember the first time, and she was like, no, this is the first time, dummy. But I had always thought that I'd done it before. And then sure enough, I did it a bunch of times. So I got like my little timelines mixed up or something.
You did. The reason why I was asking was if you had an early memory, and maybe it was something that was being watched, or you saw adults reading books and there were people in those outfits.
Maybe. My mom was a costume designer and a clothing designer. So she had a lot of
those kind of things around.
Art books. Yeah.
Interesting. So we can't really deduce whether it was something from a prior life or it was something that entered the consciousness as a young memory, and you wanted to know, do I reset?
Every time I die. Or maybe like I just really like those dresses and I wanted to go wearing them.
Yeah. Now, have you worn any of those?
No, I never have. Odd,
okay, well, we need to have a party where you wear them, and I want to know how it feels.
Okay.
Like if it feels like right.
All right.
You know, like this feels, yeah, yes.
All right.
So your mum was a costume designer with that. Yeah. Now I had one thing where I would have this dream of repetitively punching in a phone number, and I'm talking about digital at this point, and I would just keep pressing the wrong numbers over and over again and get really, really frustrated, right? And then I realized one day I was in an office and I would keep mispunching the number, but I wasn't getting frustrated. And so there's obviously a little thing, I think it's similar with like the door. There's something from before that in my dreams, it would kind of haunt me. But in real life, when I was dealing with that, it didn't faze me. Yeah, there's got to be something way back in their subconscious, or you know, they say often, you know, children who have these memories that were clearly from before, it's closer because the consciousness is closer from coming in and then getting busy with the world. Yes, that's fascinating. So how many times did you slam your fingers in the door?
I think 4 or 5. And, you know, maybe it's just something with my fingers and toes. I've had a lot of injuries on my fingers and toes over the years. I don't know. I just haven't looked out for them very well.
So it's sort of like you got your whiskers cut, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you just like got, you know, like how to mess with a cat, cut the whiskers and see if they think they can get through the hole.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got your whiskers cut, so your digits or your extremities would get in the way. Ears a problem?
No, not for me. No,
it's the extremities.
Just hands and feet. Yeah.
Hands and feet. Those digits. I wonder. It's almost like you're still a fish. You just didn't quite.
It is. Right. You know, and actually I am a Pisces for my sun sign. And I remember reading, it doesn't say it in everyone, but they, sometimes we are prone to injuries on our hands and feet. And I was like, what? That is weird. But yeah, I had a really bad accident on one of my toes one time and a really bad accident on one of my fingers. Yeah.
Oh. So let's see what else I can come up with, which is spot on.
See, I am a fish. That's it.
yes, exactly. So you then wanted to come back. Did you have a lot of time fantasizing about dress up when you were younger, or living somewhere else other than you are? Actually, that's a really stupid question to ask because you're a Pisces.
I did. Actually, I used to draw pictures of ladies in long dresses. And also I love like the really long sleeves, you know, like kind of the troubadour sleeves.
Yes, the sort of like the elders would have the long, like, we'll just sort of like, almost like angels.
Yeah.
The trumpets, and they have, for the angels, everyone's got long. Yes. Oh, it's very much associated with, well, it can be in the church too, but it's got to be associated with, let's just say, wise spiritual figures.
and all of my kind of doodles of people when I would just, kind of draw, they were in those long gowns with the very long sleeves. But yeah, because my mom was an illustrator and a costumer. So she would always, that's often what she would do to keep us entertained, would be to just have us draw.
And it was you and your brother?
I have, I have a sister that's closer in age to myself, and then an older brother and sister as well. So 4 kids.
So would all of you draw together?
No, usually just my younger sister and me.
Were you both quite talented at it?
My sister, even more so. Yeah. We were all right. I don't know if I'd say it was talent, but my mom taught us like perspective and shading. Like she taught us all the technical. And one year she had me draw all of our Christmas cards. I drew angels on them.
They have long sleeves.
They did. And wings,
So you were very much encouraged to draw and be creative. Yes. And that was your natural inclination as well. Did you have any siblings that it wasn't?
Let's see. No, all of us were a bit artistically inclined. Yeah, my brother and the older 2 were more musicians.
So your elder siblings were into music?
Yes. Very talented, both of them. Both of them could play so many instruments. Like my older sister, Linda, could play the piano and the guitar and sing. She sang beautifully. And my older brother, Robbie, plays the guitar really well and also plays the banjo. And he's a singer-songwriter. Yeah.
And so what professions did they go into?
Well, let's see. My sister, Linda, she's passed away. But before she passed, she didn't really have like a profession per se. She, did secretarial work, and she's super, super smart and always was like the top assistant. And she ended up being like a medical secretary to doctors, like for a practice. And then my brother went into IT and computer programming. Yeah. And he worked for water utilities.
There's a lot of water in this conversation.
That's right. That's funny.
And so they still kept up their artistic musical endeavors?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. My sister sang with the municipal choir. And then my brother's just always got a guitar in his hands. Yeah.
So your father, what was his profession?
Well, my father was in the Navy for, 20 plus years, and then in Fleet Reserve. And then after that, he was an actor, a professional actor. He had his SAG card. He was in many of the movies that were shot in Texas in the 70s, like The Great Waldo Pepper and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Story of Leadbelly. My dad's in all those. Yeah, so that was what he did.
So when he moved out to Los Angeles, it was, of course.
Yes.
Now, what was the shock that you had coming to Los Angeles from Texas?
Well, I think the way that people interact is different. In Los Angeles, people are more defended, and they're not, as we would say in Texas, that neighborly, right? So you don't really know your neighbors. But in Texas, the first thing you're going to do is meet your neighbors. And
the people come over, like, even if it's an apartment, right? Not necessarily a house. People will come over and say, hi, y'all.
Yeah. They'll come over, and if you see them outside, they'll be like, hey, come on in, let's have some tea, and they just like to chat and get to know you. But so in Los Angeles, like just that separation and the boundaries and, walls are a little more. That was a big shock.
You think that's possibly because you were more of a rural neighborhood in Texas rather than it being so-called just a city difference? in general?
Maybe. Yeah. I had never lived in a city before.
When do you remember having another shift or awakening in your consciousness after wanting to go back into dresses?
Well, let's see. I think probably in my mid-20s, you know, like mid to late 20s. I recognized that, you know, I really started to explore spirituality and different types of spirituality and different religions.
And what was the impetus for that?
Well, I was living in New England at the time, and I was working outside as a guide at an archaeological site. I really love archaeology and history. And so being among just the trees and out in nature all day, every day, led me to kind of really explore, you know, more Wiccan stuff and more relating to the earth as a being, you know, as an entity and as a deity, you know, in a way. And so it turns out that my mother was an amazing gardener. She, you know, all our life, she had huge gardens and she was just able to grow the most amazing plants. And so I felt in recent years, I felt like, well, maybe the way why I'm drawn to, you know, trees and to nature is maybe there's this through my mother, this great relationship to plants. I don't know.
I think it's nature. The spirituality of the earth that's bigger. It's a personification of life, right? Up comes life, and then the cycle of life, and then it dies, and then up comes another, right? This is where one is able to reflect out into nature something that is completely bigger than one immediately, right? Like try going to the ocean and managing the tides. Can't. Right, like it's bigger as a consciousness, and reverence is required to work with nature, respecting nature, which is, you know, as a global consciousness, we've sort of like forgotten a little bit. And Mother Nature, if I will call it Mother Nature, is very tolerant and forgiving, but has their boundaries, and so bites back. So it sounds like, you know, your mother had found her relationship. And it's also very healing, because not that your mother needed any healing, but the groundedness of being in nature is, you know, we're out there with the ions, where we're sort of walking in so-called better air, not necessarily Los Angeles, but even in a big city like this, simply going up a little bit, you know, maybe up Mulholland or somewhere, and being in a more earthy environment, it changes one's perception without really realizing it. You know, like, oh, I feel better, I went for a walk. But you feel better if you go for a walk a little way and you can feel nature, you can feel that grounding element within. So in that respect, it very much is a spiritual endeavor. So you found yourself attracted to nature. I just getting these images of, I don't know, the trees in the autumn or the fall, you know, and the leaves are rich colors, especially on the East Coast of America. They're so pretty,
beautiful,
right? And then the wind just whistling, you know, whisking up the leaves. So how did that develop for you?
Well, I also really love rocks. I love rocks because they're so still. And I knew in New England a few people who were stonemasons, and I think how it grew within me is you can listen to nature. You can actually listen to plants, and you can observe them, and they will communicate with you. Example, when they need water, when they're happy, right? They have that happy energy. And And so this, like my affinity, I really love rocks. And I love beautiful carvings made of rock. I love statues, steles, anything made of rocks. I really like it. And maybe it's just that earth energy. The stonemason used to tell me rocks are the original computers. He was like, rocks remember everything. If you make a sound.
He talked to the rocks the way you would talk to plants.
He did, yeah. And I do talk to plants. I listen to them too. And
the listening is the part that we all have to get better at.
And so just going through life, this has been a constant for me where I'm very nomadic. I rarely stay in one place very long, but I always have plants. And then it's always a pleasure to me. I give my plants away when I move. Because plants don't like to move around. Yeah. They're not too fond of that. They like to stay in the same place.
Would you say you're on par with your mum's capabilities with plants?
Oh gosh, no way. No way. My mom was a master gardener for the state of Texas. So she'd be on call. If someone called in and was like, well, I know I've got this invasive shrub, they would call my mom.
Whoa. So she really was very handy.
Yeah.
You know, the costuming and then working with plants.
Yeah.
So nowadays, do you find much solace and calm and get centered by working with plants and gardening? I
do. Yeah. I try at my house. I always have a small garden and I love raising food, and then eating, you'd say tomatoes. That I've grown myself because I'm really just eating the sunlight that was, coming down on my own yard. So yes, I always have a lot of container plants and put things in my yard, and I have raised beds. I love
you
gardening.
Find it puts you into a different state of consciousness.
Yes, it does. It helps me slow down. It helps me listen. I can communicate with the plants. And I mean, they don't talk in words, right? It's more like just a feeling. But, that's what my mom taught me. Like, what's this plant trying to tell you? Is it happy or unhappy? Is it thirsty? Or she'll say about a certain plant, oh, this plant likes to have her feet wet.
So they always want to have a lot of water.
Yeah, that's like a coleus. Some of the plants that really like a lot of water. Basil, my God, basil really likes to have their feet wet. A bit. I've killed so many unintentionally. I feel sad when I kill a plant.
When you're working with the plants, do you find that you not only feel more connected and grounded, that it's a great creative space and ideas may come in?
Yeah, actually, yes, because it helps me slow down and I just think in different patterns than, maybe going over something in my head or something like that. It helps create more space, to I normally go out and I take care of my plants in the morning. That's part of my daily routine,
And what is your morning routine that you like to do to help yourself stay grounded?
Well, I do like a little grounding meditation. I like to light a candle and I do a grounding meditation for me. And then sometimes if it's, if everything's going great, it's 10 minutes to do that. If it's been a rough week, it's like half an hour, right? Until I finally feel. And then I open my eyes and I do like a silent sit, 5 to 10 minutes to just feel my own energy and take things in. And then I'm like, we can take care of the plants. And then I water and, tend them. So it takes an hour to go through everything.
An hour in the morning in the routine. And those of you who think, oh goodness, that seems too much, I don't have enough time. And the actual reality is, once one starts a regular practice of grounding oneself and feeling the benefits, your sense of time changes, and you actually find that time is given to you, maybe waking up earlier, or in the afternoon things, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. And when you don't do it, you miss it dramatically.
I miss it so much.
That's because one is going back to a state of consciousness that the mind didn't realize you had moved away from until you go back. Right. And so part of the mind is always moving forward. What do we want next? Where are we going to go? This is very important. This is all part of our evolution. Right. And then we forget, oh, yeah, this is helping me. Right. We sort of can call it, call a busy business person syndrome. They learn to meditate, have a nice practice, and then they put all this energy and they start doing more things. But then they do so many things, just forget to do that. And then what happens is completely implodes. Right now, if it seems a little overwhelming to spend an hour, and people are curious about what Aware Meditation as a nonprofit is doing, which is trying to teach large numbers of people self-sufficient practice where you don't have to sit for a whole hour, and it will teach you how to do it without trying to concentrate. And that's in an ebook we have called Vedic Meditation Stories. It's the only publication globally right now that has true stories from individuals who learnt the practice, who would never meditate, mainly underrepresented groups. And it's completely free if you have, I think, Amazon Prime, and you just download it, and the link will be down below. And any proceeds go to the nonprofit to help people change their consciousness. Because over time, when someone has a practice of going from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, right? So you go from the adrenals are up to where the adrenals are now stabilized, that starts to then imprint upon that individual's consciousness a habit of not being in fight or flight. And the way that the world is moving, there's always something. I mean, people would say, oh, I can't wait to be at home. And if I had all this time to be at home, and then we had a pandemic and everyone was at home.
Right.
And the stress levels went up, right? So this idea, we think, oh, I'll be fine, then, or I'll go away for a retreat, rather than doing it daily to then start to create a mind that then can slip in to then change our approach to things. And so your experience with the plants, like, then giving back to nature, right, which is spending time and having reverence to nature, which is very well reciprocated, right? That energy is very well reciprocated, and then feeling that creative flow, and you've learned to intuitively commune with plants. How does that then translate with you communicating with human beings?
Well, it definitely gives me more patience, and I am more approachable. I work from home, and my paid job is one that it's kind of like conducting a symphony. None of the people I work with are my employees, but I have to get them all to work together to accomplish a certain goal. And so what I find when I'm diligent in my practice is that I'm easier in the meetings, and we figure things out. But sometimes, you're doing something for the first time when we're selling certain types of services, and maybe this company wants it done a different way. And people are like, what? I've never heard of this. It's ridiculous. And we go, well, what if we could do it? What would that look like? And so I find that the whole team has more creative thoughts, and we all kind of enjoy our life a little bit more.
It's absolutely true. The recent studies of workplace burnout, one of the markers is the difference between motivation. You're motivated to do something, and then being asked and forced to do something. It's when the consciousness is not in creativity, is not in that receptibility that we had when we were children, right? Not in the desire to, well, that's never been done before. Okay, let's see.
Right.
I know. I was, Mum, come and taste this food I've made. I've melted this chocolate and put it.
Yeah.
What's underneath it, Paula? A raw egg.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I didn't know that, raw eggs and dark chocolate. I think there's some training manual about having that. But she was like, no. I was most upset. And she would not partake of my novel protein heavy dessert. But I was willing to try that. And that was, I wasn't 4. I was a teenager. Just try that. But the point is, when we are in a creative state and when we connect inward, and the stress is released, we live more in creativity, and creativity actually brings a quality to us of connecting to source and also being lighter.
Definitely.
Right? Like, children are a lot of work, but they're lighter. They're lighter.
Yes.
And the lighter that they are, the more the flow is. And so that actually does bring for less stress and less burnout, because then coming together in a communal aspect, trying to problem solve.
Yes. And I find it really helps me solve problems more quickly. And definitely it gives my team a better experience, of me. Right. And, there are certain people in this type of role that will be like, just do it. And so that nobody enjoys that. And so it helped me really strengthen my practice and say to myself, well, it's really worth it. And, I didn't start at an hour. I started 5 minutes, and then I grew to 10 minutes, and then 15, so I just gradually, probably over a 4-month period, until I finally went, you know what? Like, I need an hour. If I could dedicate an hour, and then I won't feel rushed. And I can just, when I have that kind of stable place to start the day, it's great.
Right. Because then your day isn't about that day job.
Right.
You've already started your day, and it's part of a consciousness of who you are. It's not only who you are.
Right. Yes. Oh, that's so well put. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so the self-identity of work is if all one does is work. And then the theology of find your passion and it won't feel like work really is, if one is connected inward with source, nothing is work, because it's all an experience.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have very much enjoyed this wonderful chat about nature and plants. And if you would like to learn more about Mary, please just check it in the description. I'll put your comments down, share, and please subscribe if you can. It helps support the channel and pass on the word. And we want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all on the next Cosmic Chat.